Imagine a vibrant discussion between people that includes both openness and critical thought in the pursuit of truth. The Purchasing Truth podcast is an experience, a journey, an exploration of the impact that negative messages in politics and the media have on our families, community, society, and nation. Join your hosts, Bill Stierle and Tom Hazard, to discover new concepts and language strategies that will reveal effective ways of establishing truth. This podcast series will tackle current events, leadership challenges, healthcare confusion, integrity in business, and many other areas that affect us all. Gain clarity and understanding of the various truth perspectives. Welcome to Purchasing Truth.
Welcome back to Purchasing Truth. I'm Tom Hazard, along with your host, Bill Stierle. And you know, Bill, we talked a lot about curses and spells last time. I thought that was a lot of fun. And I think we can continue that discussion a bit, especially in the context of something that is all over the media today, the ouster of Liz Cheney from her, conference leadership position in the House of Representatives. And she's advocating for truth,
right?
Among other things, right? Mm-hmm. And so let's use that as a departure point today.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, Tom, because when human beings communicate with each other and they're advocating for their point of view, there's their belief, their bias, their even a fallacy that somebody can create, which is it's something that human beings have had for a long time. We used to have mythical stories that there would be a king that would put a curse on something, and a queen that would put the spell, or a witch would put the spell, or the king or the troll. You know, all those male type images put the message in. And that was the instigator for the story. It was the thing that the story was kind of built around. And then the idea with a mythic tale is that it gives us a perspective to see if we're doing the thing. Because myths and story and really good stories can lead us out of the mess. Facts and information are just points of data in the field of time, whereas a story is something that can translate through time, and a person can tell it, 100, 700, 1,000, 2,000 years later, 7,000 years later, and it could be just as poignant today. We can watch Snow White and look at the seven dwarves and think about our emotions going up and down like the seven dwarves do, and that's what that story is about. How do you manage the emotions? How does a woman manage her emotions? How does a man manage his emotions? How do we, deal with these different images? And curses and spells are very much a part of that. And in media, we're noticing these things. And in politics, we're noticing these things. And in business, marketing and sales and branding is all about, how's the message sticking? Do we need to create a new message? Do we need to change our message? One of the very first branding messages of McDonald's is millions sold. Millions sold. And they used to put the number up on the sign.
You remember? I remember that. Yeah.
1 million, 2 million, 5 million. Every time you drove by, you're going like, I'm a part of changing the number on that sign. Now, it got to be a point where, they're over $1 trillion.
Yeah. I remember when it was, 1.5 billion or 2 billion or whatever. And at some point, the number becomes meaningless.
It became meaningless. And then they have to change the brand and the brand slogan that goes with the brand. And now it's loving it.
Yeah.
I'm loving it. That's the new slogan. So, the challenge that Liz Cheney and the Republicans have, and the challenge that the Democrats have, is getting messages to stick. And one of the magical things that former President Trump would be able to do is he would look at the messages and say, oh, no, that message is going to work best. That one's going to stick. I think this one's going to stick. And he'd even use his rallies as branding and marketing test cases and see how the crowd would cheer. And then after he tested, he goes like, oh, I've tried this message out, drain the swamp. I didn't really kind of like it at the beginning, but now all of a sudden I've got some great cheers from that. So I'm using it all the things. How do you like it? They're like, yes, drain the swamp. And he's literally testing branding and marketing in real time. And what people don't really understand is that's an enrollment piece, is I'm enrolling loyalty, which is a part of the curse. Is when you're loyal, you're not questioning whether the thing is true or not.
That is very true. And at the same time, scary, isn't it?
Correct. And if I'm loyal to a person, a TV show, a network, a product, a service, some of that stuff can be great. But it's also, you'll never notice if you're loyal to a product if they change the ingredients on the product. Now, both of us can take a breath. All natural food. Well, it was when it was first came out, but that was too expensive. So we changed it and put artificial things in. But because the brand is associated with all natural, we get to keep the title. But not the ingredients are not true anymore. Really
okay. That's unsettling. Okay.
It is. So let me just pick on one. Tom's toothpaste.
Okay.
Tom's toothpaste.
Sure. I think of it as all natural. I think of it as not tasting very good, maybe being better for the environment.
Right. So it had all of those elements at the beginning until it was bought by a major toothpaste company and they changed the ingredients.
Did they? I didn't even know that.
And I know that's what this session is about. That's
you just led me down the path, didn't you? I'm under the spell. Yeah.
The spell is that, of course, it's staying the same. But there's a fallacy in that. The thing is not staying the same because the environment has changed. What you thought is true is not really fully true. It's partly true. On the box, it's true. It has some of the same agreements, mostly. But remember that sweetener that they had in it before that was all natural? Well, they kind of tapped that out and used another one that wasn't really as thing, but more cost effective for the company to produce. Oh, the consumer won't know. The consumer won't mind. That's a spell. So curses and spells are really important for us to take a look at as a theme. So as Liz Cheney goes back to a bedrock principle that she can actually build upon, I'm staying with the Constitution and I'm making sure Donald Trump does not sit in the White House again. Those two simple messages are, the first one is curse free. I'm sticking with the Constitution.
And I think she also said law and order, right? The rule of law. The rule of law, not law and order. That was a different one. Yeah, the rule of law.
The rule of law. The rule of law says this. I'm sticking with that. Because if we're not sticking with that, we don't have the thing that we've had up for the last 200 years, 250 years.
Right.
We don't have that. So we're going to go back to that. And we're going to, do that thing because that's what I'm standing for. And I'm going to make sure that the person that was the representative of this is not there. Now, can Liz Cheney build her brand image and recapture the imagination of the Republican Party in order to go and get other people back in her direction? Can she get the party to steer back towards more towards the middle and away from the right.
Well, I don't know if she can. She sure as heck is going to try. And the irony is that the Republicans who are loyal to Trump in Congress, that are showing, I guess the word they keep using is fealty to Trump. Is that a condescending term, where they're saying they're bowing to him, they're acquiescing to him or something? They're in lockstep with the former president.
Yeah.
The irony is they've given her a bigger platform by making such a fuss over removing her as a Republican leader in the conference and in the House, because she's on every national news program. Everybody wants an interview with her, and it's being elevated.
Yeah, they lifted her profile by the separation, the outsourcing. And I don't know if it's planned or if it's unconscious. Most of my brain mostly thinks of some of these things as completely unconscious and unaware, unconscious. And they actually don't know that there is a bigger branding boost for Liz Cheney, the Cheney mindset, the Cheney administration. What's going to be the Cheney rule of law? How is Cheney going to run the country? See, I'm already starting to brand her without her knowing it on this podcast. I'm saying, what is the Cheney?
Yeah, you're branding her as a presidential candidate almost right there.
Right. And whereas you can't get there's certain things that you can't get traction on. The big steal, the big lie, this is the big lie, the big steal. And all of a sudden Trump took a run at rebranding the big lie and say, well, the big lie is that the election was won by Biden. So he's trying to. He tried to do
that. That didn't seem to stick, though, did it?
Branding is something that is a little bit like throwing spaghetti on the wall to see if what's something that's going to stick, Tom. So and for all of those people who are listening from a political standpoint, you can see how this works. But also, those of you need to remember this works for businesses as well as personal identity, as well as how do you rebound from a mistake? If you make a mistake, step in and through it. Don't try to wallpaper over cracked paint. Scrape the paint off first before you put the wallpaper back on it. Yeah. At least, and say, it used to be cracked paint, but you can't tell. At least do that, but don't just try to. And I think they're really struggling. The Republicans are really struggling with their wallpaper job. They're not cleaning off the garbage that's underneath it.
Oh, I agree. It's because one of the things that's most shocking that's come out in the last 24 hours since Liz Cheney has been removed from her, conference leadership position is that, House Minority Leader McCarthy has said, "Hey, no one's ever said that Joe Biden is not a legitimate president." I mean, he actually said that. And of course, he was in the Oval Office when he said it because all the leadership was meeting with Biden yesterday. Yeah. But he said, no, we're not saying that President Biden isn't the legitimate president. And everybody watching that who has seen him in the media in the last month or two is sort of looking at that with kind of a questioning look. Really? Because, I mean, he, among others, have been saying exactly the opposite, that there's so much fraud that and that the election, was stolen, and among other things, that now he's trying to paper over it, is what I guess I'm trying to say.
Well, see, there's something weird in branding and marketing and messaging, Tom, is that you can deliver one message in one bubble, and then you could deliver a counter message in a different bubble, because those bubbles of people aren't talking to each other and don't look at each other's stuff. So so he can say that and to this, and then all of a sudden they can flop back in a microsecond because one bubble will pick up the message over here and the other bubble will pick it up over here. And because the bubbles are separate, they don't really, the greater population doesn't see it's happening. Here's a good example. Lindsey Graham, after the insurrection, says, I went a long way with Trump and this is where the journey ends.
Yeah, he did say no more. Yeah,
he said no more. And that's where liberal media picked it up and pushed it. Okay, he's seen the light. He's now going to be an advocate. He's going to be on the other side of this. In a week, he flies down to Mar-a-Lago. Within a week and a half, 2 weeks, whatever it was that he flew down there, and delivered an entire set of messages that could be picked up by Fox and put on. Those are that is bubble counter bubble messaging.
Well, and most recently, I've heard him saying, I've determined that the Republican Party is better off with Donald Trump than without Donald Trump. That's like his latest one, right?
That's his latest one. So that is something that plays wonderfully inside those the 73 million people that voted for him, the former president, and it doesn't play in the 81 million, but there's no consequence to Lindsey Graham because he's just got to worry about South Carolina, and then worry about his national presence, and whether or not somebody calls him a flip-flopper or not, he's a talking piece that is just messaging into various different bubbles, different messages. You and I have done the similar things in our businesses. We say, okay, here's one vertical I'm going to talk, and I need to talk in that language of IT. And then over in this other marketplace, I need to talk in this level of, manufacturing with China. I've got those are different bubbles.
Sure.
People, and they're not necessarily paying attention to each other.
That's true. This does happen in business a lot. No question.
Yeah. So the good part of this story is with curses and spells is that they can be a curse. A curse is something the curse is broken. And you've got to have enough pressure for the curse to be broken. The stakes have got to be high enough. Right now, the stakes are not high enough yet to break the curse. The spell is something you wake up from. So
would you say that the curse right now on the Republican Party is in some way, Trump's stranglehold over the party still, and Cheney's trying to wake them up from it?
That's right. She's got a tough, and the Republicans have a tough run to reclaim loyalty to the party, not loyalty to the person.
And to their principles, I think, to certain principles,
loyal
right?
To certain principles. They've got to go back to that because they can't, there's many of them will struggle with the word integrity because they don't have that. It's not to say that the Democrats don't have some problems with integrity too. They have all kinds of certain integrities that that there's a list on their side. To break a curse, you got to stare and walk through it is one of the things that Liz Cheney has just started to do. Mitt Romney is too nice. He became nice. And what he needed to do is stare it down. At that conference, he needed to apply empathy and directness, which is something he didn't do. He walked out there and said, everybody knows I'm not a great fan of the last president. No, he's going to get booed every single time with a sentence like that. But he could have done this. I would have liked Mitt Romney to say this because I'm interested in the United States of America. I'm not interested in bipartisan America. Not interested in that. That's my advocacy. Okay, so I want Mitt to have a solid conversation with Americans. Listen, I stand up in front of you. I'm pretending I'm Mitt right now. I stand up in front of you feeling very torn because a part of me really values these Republican principles. I value this, and I value this, and I value this, and I value this. I feel torn because another part of me knows that the president did not live up to those values. Yet, because he was a Republican, I supported him most of the way. But as a person of integrity, I drew the line at, and now all of a sudden he sounds like a presidential candidate again.
Right.
And he starts to reclaim, and he moves back into the leadership position where you can work with the person.
Which is really his message there is, well, what he could have said is not that far removed from what Liz Cheney is saying. I mean, they both are saying similar things, just in different ways, right?
That's correct. Similar things. And Liz is missing, and she hasn't put in her narrative, empathy for the loyalty that
the Trump supporter.
Trump supporter. You got to empathize with the people. They put their vote in, they put their bet in on that guy. And he did sell a good message. I'm going to be different. I'm going to be an outsider. I know great people. I know great people that can work on this. I can come in. I can have this. We're going to run this more like a business because, I am a successful business people. They bought all of those narratives. So the person's personal bias said, I've been working for a successful business person. Trump is a successful business person. I know what successful business people do because my boss is one of them. Clearly, he's going to be like my boss. The answer is no, he's not like your boss at all. He has these other narratives that are regrettably not collaborative or cooperative that's needed inside the political space.
How could Liz Cheney empathize with that loyal Trump voter in this moment with the whole narrative of trying to push Trump out the door? Because really, she's gone all in saying, I'm committed to not letting the former president get anywhere near the Oval Office again. I mean, she's like declared war. Yeah,
she really has. And her next sentence is, I hear you feel angry. You're feeling angry because a part of you would like the former president to tell the truth and be integritous about what the vote was. And it's a lot easier for you to believe that your vote was not counted or was that other people voted and caused your vote to things. And I could see how painful that is because that affects your need for trust and your need for integrity that I'm willing to fight for now.
Wow.
Now it's pulling that. She's got to get a third of people move in her direction. She's going to have to get them.
She's pulling loyalty away from Trump and trust in a way and instilling it in herself.
That's right. At least you'll know I'm going to stand for trust. At least I am going to be an advocate to be straight with you and be truthful with you.
Boy, this kind of messaging is how Liz Cheney can beat back any primary challenge from Trump in Wisconsin and get herself reelected.
That's right. Wyoming.
Yes. What state did I say?
Wisconsin.
Oh,
you said Wisconsin.
Wyoming. Sorry. Yeah. You know what it was? I have a customer, new customer from Wisconsin, and it was on my brain. So, okay.
That's good. And the restoration of the Constitution, she could pull out lines out of the Constitution and just start advocating. Listen, we need to start working towards this value set because this value set is not being done the way I would like it to be done. And this is the way I see this value in the Constitution. The Constitution isn't very long. It's really pretty easy to read.
Yeah, actually, Bill, you know what? Ironically, I have right here a little pamphlet of the Constitution of the United States. It's been sitting on my desk for a while. Somebody gave it to me at an event recently, and I'm a fellow member of board of advisors. And so I happen to have the Constitution, and it is a quick read. You're right.
It is. It is a quick read, and the interpretation of it is it's things, and then the Bill of Rights has a piece to it that really works really well with it. It's like, yeah, these are the changes or additions or the clarifications that we made along the way. And this makes us a better nation because we're working to have a common document that we're in agreement about. And this is what it means to have freedom of speech. And here's the limitations of the freedom of speech. And that is also dropped. Notice that there's a split of the belief. I have freedom of speech. And the answer is like, well, you do. And there are limits to that.
Yeah, people don't understand that. They think that means you could say anything you want, anytime you want. And that wasn't really the whole purpose. It was freedom to speak out in opposition to your government without fear right. of repercussions from a ruler, right? Or your leadership.
That's right. The way the leadership works. And that's a great example. When you split a value, the freedom of speech, and you take away, that's when it becomes a spell. And I believe in it, but yet I'm not conscious of that. My belief is this small, where I need to stretch my truth to encompass this. And so, I mean, it's tough to stare down these things, because this is the path forward, is having better skilled communicators and people that really stand and advocate for the fuller advocacy of what that value is. And curses and spells give us a way to talk about things like that we would call half-truths, or a point of view or a bias that has limitations to it, or something that is completely from a place of fallacy. So here's an example. So the big steal or the big lie. Well, Trump can counter those messages and start putting a spell in. And here's his spell. He just did it 3-4 days ago. Well, when we see what's happening in Arizona, then when we see what's going to happen in Georgia, then what's going to happen in Pennsylvania, and that's going to happen in Michigan, and we'll see the things that they're going to find. That's a spell.
Putting people under a spell that the big steal is going to be revealed. Is that right?
Right. That's right. That there's the mystery. And that's a part of something, Tom, you and I talked about good sellers do. They present a reward, they create anticipation, and they create uncertainty. Well, we're not sure what they're going to find.
Oh, it's Trump's favorite greatest hit line. We'll see what happens, right?
We'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens.
That is an uncertainty sentence. That is a calculated, branded, calculated meta message that's in the propaganda space. That's for him.
Precisely to convey the feeling of uncertainty.
That's right. That's right. And when we look at messaging, and human beings are very sensitive. We are very sensitive creature. We're susceptible to our biases and to our fallacies and to our limited beliefs. Very susceptible. And we're interested in drawing lines from something we know to something we don't know, any way we can get there. Any way we can get there. And we could take a person out of scripture and draw it to our current condition. Somehow, this is why this rule works here. Or we could take something out of any one of our limiting beliefs and just draw it to, well, this is why this is true. It's like, how did you get there from here? And if you really want to watch this in real time, just start listening to kids. Kids are drawing their version of truth, which is far from the truth. My son will easily say to me, my 14-year-old son, yeah, I worked on my homework. I got most of it done. I check online. Now we can do that. I can check online. He did 1 out of 6 assignments. It's like, dude, no, I can play my game now.
Yes. Yeah.
They're going to draw the truth of their freedom, their freedom and their independence any way they can get there at the expense of integrity and trust and things like that, Well,
let's give a few more examples of some curse and spell messages that I think a lot of people will relate to and help understand the concept a little more.
Well, I appreciate that. So, like, for example, you and I talked about recycling the other at one point on one of the episodes, and there was the concept called wish cycling. I wish they could be recycled. And so we throw it in the recycle container. And that's an example of a person that is from the left thinking, I got to do my part in recycling and this thing will never be recycled. No, they'll pull the metal out of the umbrella. No, they won't. They'll just throw out the umbrella because there's not enough value in the metal that goes into that umbrella. It's got to go to the dump and it's over. And so wish cycling is example one. Another example of a spell is during COVID when the former president said, the COVID will just go away like a miracle. And people felt calm because the word miracle is familiar. Like a miracle. You'll see it. It's going to go away. He's meeting the need for reassurance. That's the reward. I'm getting reassurance now. It's not as scary. My leader just told me that it's going to happen this way. It's going to go away. And you know what? COVID's going to disappear in the spring when it gets hot. When it gets hot, when you don't have a cold anymore. It's like, oh my God, the summer was like.
Oh yeah, no.
There was the
summer was one of the biggest surges. Yeah.
And we just got pummeled because when you're under a spell and when your belief and you're investing in that belief, you're not looking at the problem honestly. You're just not looking at it. And so, soon the numbers will be next to nothing. The COVID numbers, we're 12, will be at 0 really soon. Well, it's reassuring, but it's not really fully truthful about what you're experiencing. And then if there was a rapid response, doing something actively to move things into action, to set up infrastructure, to do all the things that when government is asked to do it, it will do it. Biden just knew where all the levers were and just started pulling.
Yeah, just ramped up that distribution, and
he lived an entire life inside the system. It's like you and I knowing where many of the things in our houses are. I know where my silverware is kept. You know where your silverware is kept. You know where to go get that. Well, Biden, having a lifelong experience in government, knows where all the levers are.
Yeah, and
go find it.
What I might say in that is, I know where the fire extinguisher is in the house, right? When there's a fire, you need to put it out. You need to know where that fire extinguisher is. Otherwise, you just got to get out of the house, right?
Yeah.
If the fire happens, right?
That's right. And I think Americans will really make a better, be a little more hesitant about getting a full outsider in a leadership position without at least doing some time in Congress or in some time in the Senate before they can do it. But you got to also have some chops. It's not like saying Barack Obama had a ton of experience coming in there, because he really didn't. He's like the fresh senator, but at least he knew how to talk to people and how to network, because he did that well, and take advice and and he kept people from the old administration on, even people that caused the problem. He kept on.
He did for a while. Yeah.
Yeah. For a while, it's like, you caused them. It's like, well, you're going to get us out of here. How'd you guys get us in this mess? So, oh yeah, this is what we did. Okay. Well, I'm working with you for 2 years. You better help me turn this around. It's like, geez. Okay. So curses and spells are really important things to talk about and engage in, and we can restore them. A spell can be restored. It's waking up. It's having an awareness of it. It's like having awareness of the problems in Afghanistan and then getting out, having awareness of the problems in Iraq and then getting out. And then when we got out, of course, guess what? There's a consequence for getting out. And then ISIS rises up because we took away the strong man that was holding that thing down. And all of a sudden it's like, well, the Americans here, they're going to make it right. And the answer is, well, we don't even know how to make things right in your country. You got to figure it out. Well, we don't have any practice figuring it out, And welcome to the mess that we now have in 2 other countries that they've got to figure out how to rebuild and how to, because there's, the Taliban wants to do things conservatively. And then now there's a group of people that don't. How are they going to work together? The whole country can't be conservative like it was.
Yeah, too big a problem for us to solve in this episode. I'll tell you that.
Too big of a problem for us to solve in this. It's a lot of communication that's needed and a lot of belief changes. And, I think this curses and spells also work with vaccines too. The beliefs about those, how a message can get started, how it becomes a message can become a curse, a message can become a spell. Big pharma is evil, bad, crooks, or big pharma is just doing vaccines just to be a moneymaker, or it's like, and big pharma is going to, jack up the prices for, and it's really, it's really a challenging thing. So when we take this very, very unique view of our environment and our messaging to pursue truth through the window of curses and spells.
Can I throw one more thing in, Bill, before we go? I want to ask your thought on this, because I don't know if you saw this news, but talk about, people reluctant to take vaccines. They're skeptical they don't work or that they're dangerous. Well, the governor of Ohio, did you see what they did there? They're trying to incentivize the population of Ohio to get vaccines. Yeah. And I don't know if you call this a spell, certainly maybe a bribe, but there actually are anybody who gets a vaccine over the next 5 weeks, they're having every week a lottery. All the people that got a vaccine, one person's name's going to be pulled out and they get $1 million for 5 weeks in a row. So there's actually a reward.
Wow.
For getting a vaccine, and for youth, for students under college age, they're doing in that lottery that you get free tuition, room and board at an Ohio State university or college when you get to that age. And so they're giving it rewards and incentives for people to get vaccinated. And it's a bit controversial. Some people are criticizing it, but but talk about a spell. Hey, come get a vaccine and you might get a big reward. Right.
And it's trying to put some kind of, incentive. Usually incentives are really good for short-term compliance. They actually don't work for long-term compliance. So by running it for 5 weeks, it's like get in and get out. And all of a sudden there's folks that are interested in that gamble, are interested in participating. It adds a little push for that to get them through the hesitancy. It allows a little bit of ability to move forward. So I'd
say that might be a spell.
It is a spell. It is a spell. And there's a wonderful book called Punished by Rewards that really talks about how incentives only work and a short time thing. And they have long-term problems when you use too many incentives. But that's another episode for sure. But it'll be interesting to see if Liz Cheney and the Republicans can really do a better job of recultivating a message that's going to work, that's in a greater alignment with truth. And it'll be interesting to see how the Democrats do a better job of saying, here's the infrastructure bill, and I know we're throwing other things into the sink that we would like to be cleaned up about. And Biden's been pretty straightforward and go like, yeah, this thing that's going to put women back to work, it's not really an infrastructure thing, but it is an economic thing that will really help to rebuild the infrastructure of business. And he knows it's not a road and a bridge, but it's still, it's an economic impact. I
would say it's a bridge to recovery. It's a bridge to yes, moving forward. Now that's obviously a metaphor, but I do think he makes a branding
message right there. Yeah.
And I think he makes a good point that put people to work in rebuilding the infrastructure of business. That's brilliant.
Yeah, I think that's the micro message. Yeah, we're really interested in the infrastructure of business too, not necessarily brick and mortar and rails and roads, but we're interested in really rebuilding the business infrastructure. Have you noticed that the restaurants were closed? Well, we need to rebuild the restaurant industry. We need to rebuild, and this has got to be a part of a infrastructure rebuild. It's got to be. We can't just see. All of a sudden, you and I are coming up with marketing messages and branding messages for the party, which is important. I mean, both of them need it.
They do. They both do.
They're any good at it.
And I would be happy, irrespective of politics and ideology. I would be very happy to see Liz Cheney message what she needs to restore integrity and principles, values, whatever, to the Republican Party. And I would be happy if, Biden messages this infrastructure bill better. Because actually, as a businessman myself, for growth in America, for prosperity, I think that would be very useful.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. That's true. I think so too. All right, Tom, this is a good one. Thanks a lot. This is great. Thanks everybody for listening.
Thanks, Bill. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you for listening to this Purchasing Truth podcast. We trust that you have enjoyed this engaging and thought-provoking conversation. Our hope is that you've received value, found clarity, and broadened your truth perspective in this episode. If you did, leave us a review or visit our website, purchasingtruth.com. Join us again for another informative and content-rich discussion here at the Purchasing Truth podcast. Don't just accept whatever information comes your way. Join the discussion. Discover your own voice. Purchase your own truth.